What would you say if I told you that JPMorgan and Deutsche Bank were allegedly deeply involved with Jeffrey Epstein? How about if I said that they allegedly knew what he was doing, what he was involved in? And what if I told you that they were being sued for their alleged actions? Finally, this may not surprise anybody, what if I told you that they were desperately trying to quash some lawsuits that are being brought by victims who are seeking damages for the banks allegedly choosing profits over following the law? Well, it's true. All of it. Here we go. Major banking concerns often find themselves in hot water from time to time. This is just fair acknowledgement of that. In fact, global banking concerns find their way into trouble more often than not. And that's just unfortunately, something that happens when you're dealing with international business. In this particular case, both JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank are on the wrong side of a potential class action lawsuit, or a set of them, that are alleging some very, very serious charges. To make matters much, much worse, the U.S. Virgin Islands, they're involved now too, because their attorney general is now accusing the financial institutions of facilitating trafficking operations of the deceased financier, Jeffrey Epstein. Now, that's a name that probably isn't going to get me a lot of love on YouTube, so if you wouldn't mind, share the video. I'm going to say that again in a minute. In their own way, of course, these suits suggest that the banks should have steered well clear from Jeffrey Epstein from the very beginning, based on the schemes that he was previously involved with and his arrest in 2006 in Florida. That arrest led him to pleading guilty to solicitation and maybe a few other things that we aren't aware of. Now, of course, that was somewhat exposed, a kind of a botched, compromised, corrupt federal investigation, to use your adjective there. It also clearly outlined all of the corrupt news coverage that was happening at the time as well. There was some kind of a cover-up going on. I mean, who can forget the hot mic admission from ABC anchor Amy Robach, stating the following.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day where we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
That hot mic video, that is still actually on YouTube from the Project V folks over there. In fact, I'm going to include that link in the description below if you want to go check it out for yourself. The exposure, or I should say this was essentially an exposure of the cover-up regarding this particular man and the far-reaching tentacles of influences and obviously the tentacles of his actions. They were staggering. And of course, everything around this is kind of staggering, which is why we're still not hearing anything about anybody who was involved in any of those behaviors or activities, which I still have a problem with. There's so many entities right now doing everything they can to cover this up, and at the time they were doing everything they could to enable these actions. And of course, that also included, it seems, allegedly, these banks. Now, of course, the story is going to get worse because it has to, right? And I only had this story since a couple of days ago when I decided I would do something on it. But something happened even more recently than when I saw this story the first time and started to dig into it. The Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands is the one that kind of brought this out in front of everybody right before the new year. Well, it seems that the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, his name is Albert Bryan, by the way, wouldn't mind making him famous for this, has fired the Attorney General in a suspect and unilateral action that, is essentially drawing suspicion of additional cover-up happening. An additional cover-up happening, as this firing, of course, only occurred after this case was filed. Wow. Now, these cases are set for their initial hearing sometime this summer, this year. We'll see if it gets that far, because both banking interests are claiming that the suits actually lack merit and that they should be dismissed. Although it's clear from the multi-page suits that are heavily redacted, at least the copies that you're allowed to see, have enough merit to get some court dates. We'll have to see what happens there. I imagine that if there's anybody that isn't corrupt, these will actually make it into court and actually be, pursued. And maybe we'll get some justice. But I feel like the lack of the mainstream media covering this, especially mainstream news media coverage, I think that's I think it's deeply concerning. I think it continues to speak towards some collusion between media, business, and the government itself. I have real concerns here. Let's see what we can do jointly to force the issue and maybe cast some more light on this deeply embedded dark elements in these institutions that now we have massive wavering of trust in. I think I can speak for everybody on that one. Yeah, really, you can simply share out this video, let people know that this particular set of cases exists, that this was essentially being trying to be squashed from multiple angles, not only in the court system, but obviously by the governor of the Virgin Islands himself. So spread this far and wide, because I think if you do that on socials, maybe more people will learn about this. And again, as clumsily as I covered this, I hope you got some insight into what looks like is happening here, because these financial institutions were pretty deeply allegedly involved in all of these kinds of behaviors, transactions, and whatnot. But hey, what do you think? It's always up to you guys. Have you actually seen any coverage on this? Have you seen any coverage at all on this since obviously the ruling against Miss Maxwell just a little while ago? That, of course, is swept under the rug. And, of course, she's now enjoying an even more relaxed prison than she was before. Maybe I'll cover that in a future video. Are you actually concerned with the lack of coverage on things that reek of corruption, like this, or what we're learning has been happening over at Twitter and maybe other socials as well? And do you see the need to cover more news items like this here on this channel a little bit more regularly? Because again, I stray very far away from a lot of these things. And again, you have to be careful when you talk about these things and use the right legal terms, like allegedly, when you do it. But I don't mind using the right words. The question is, am I going to be punished? I strongly suspect I will be, which means I probably am not monetizing this video. But it doesn't mean I don't want people to know about it. So again, please use your socials, share out the content that you enjoy. If you like this, or if you want more people to be aware of it, share the video. And of course, support other independent creators as well. They need your help. They try to bring out the same kinds of stories as I just did. They try to introduce you to some stuff that maybe you wouldn't hear about otherwise. And also introduce people to different perspectives or different takes on the news of the day, because there isn't just one take out there, there are many. And we need to recognize that, so that we don't fall into the trap. We don't fall into Plato's cave. And with that, be sure to take care of yourself. Take care of others. Wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time, bye. And don't forget to check out my Rumble at rumble.com/CultureCasino.
Thanks for visiting today. Be sure you're subscribed and hit that for alerts.
Yay!
Of course, like and share all of the videos that you can, as it helps with the algorithm. Have a great day.